The first time I saw the message, I thought it was a mistake. Just some random notification popping up on Lisa's phone while she was in the shower. Had a great time last night. Can't wait for more. No name, just a winking emoji. My stomach tightened, but I brushed it off. Maybe a friend messing around? Maybe an old conversation popping back up? But something didn't sit right. Lisa and I had been together for 10 years, married for 6. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I never thought she would do something like this. We had always been solid, or so I thought. It started a few months ago when she brought up the idea of an open marriage. I laughed at first, thinking it was one of her wild ideas that would blow over. But she was serious. It's just to spice things up, she said, flipping her hair over her shoulder like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on our life. Everyone's doing it these days. I refused. It sounded insane. But Lisa wasn't the type to let things go easily. She nagged, argued, pouted, told me how I was boring, how I wasn't open-minded enough. And like a fool, I caved. Just a trial, she promised. We set rules. No emotional attachments, no secrets. She wasted no time. Within a week, she had someone. Tyler. Some gym guy, younger than us. All muscles and fake confidence. She was giddy about it, texting nonstop, dressing up more, suddenly working late. The rules? They vanished the moment she got what she wanted. I tried. I really did. Even convinced myself that maybe it was okay, that maybe this could be some weird phase. I even went on a couple of dates myself, but it wasn't the same. I love my wife. This wasn't me. But for Lisa? Oh, she thrived in it. And now, staring at that message, my pulse pounded in my ears. I knew. This wasn't just spicing things up anymore. This was something else. I didn't say anything that night. I watched her instead. How she smiled at her phone. How she laughed to herself while texting. How she turned away when I walked past. Every little movement felt like a slap to the face. So, I did what any man in my position would do. I followed her. That's how I found myself parked outside a cheap motel 2 nights later, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Lisa's car was already there. The room light was on. The woman I gave my life to was inside with another man. And that's when something inside me snapped. The air outside the motel was thick with humidity, clinging to my skin like the weight in my chest. I stared at the dull yellow glow of the window, my pulse hammering in my ears. Inside, Lisa, my wife, was with him. Every part of me screamed to storm in there, to rip the door off its hinges, to demand answers. But a colder, sharper part of my brain held me back. No, I needed to be smart about this. Bursting in like some rage-fueled idiot wouldn't change the truth. She had already betrayed me. I needed proof. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, and snapped a few photos of her car, the room number, the timestamp. My stomach churned at what I was about to do next, but I forced myself forward. Step by step, I moved toward the motel, my heart slamming against my ribs. The door wasn't locked. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. She didn't even lock the door. Was she that careless? That confident I wouldn't find out? Or did she just not care anymore? I pushed it open just an inch. Enough to see inside. And there she was. Lisa, tangled in the sheets with Tyler, her hair a mess, her bare skin glowing under the dim motel light. They were laughing. Laughing. Like this was some kind of joke. Like our marriage meant nothing. Something inside me cracked. A deep, raw fury, sharper than anything I had ever felt. But still, I held back. I needed her to see me. I stepped into the doorway. Silence. Lisa turned her head and locked eyes with me. For the briefest second, her face went pale. Then, unbelievably, she rolled her eyes. Oh, for God's sake, Ethan, don't be dramatic. Dramatic. Tyler sat up, not even bothering to cover himself. Smirking. You're not supposed to be here, bro, he said, stretching like he'd just woken up from a nap instead of ruining my life. Lisa, meanwhile, sighed like I was some annoying inconvenience. How did you even find us? You're stalking me now. That was it. That was the moment I realized the woman I married was gone. No guilt. No shame. Just annoyance. I stepped forward, voice like steel. You lied to me. Lisa scoffed. No, I didn't. We agreed to an open marriage. This isn't an open marriage, Lisa. This is you having an affair. You're in a motel with him behind my back. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, please. Don't make this bigger than it is. You knew what you signed up for. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. Did I? Because last I checked, we had rules. Rules you clearly don't give a damn about. Tyler stood up, grabbing his jeans off the floor. Look, man, if you want to cry about it, do it outside, all right? We were kinda in the middle of something. A red haze filled my vision. My fist tightened at my side. It would have been so easy to put this guy through the nearest wall. But that's what he wanted, wasn't it? To see me lose control? Lisa crossed her arms, completely unbothered. Ethan, you need to leave. We're done here. Done. Just like that. Like our years together meant nothing. Like she hadn't just shattered everything we built. I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. You don't even feel bad, do you? She shrugged. I feel bad that you're acting like this. It's honestly pathetic. Pathetic. I took a slow, deep breath, forcing my hands to stay at my sides. All right, Lisa. You want this. Fine. You can have it. But don't think for a second you're walking away clean. I turned on my heel and walked out, ignoring the smug look on Tyler's face, ignoring Lisa's exasperated sigh. But as I stepped into the night air, I made a promise to myself. This wasn't over. Lisa thought she could throw me away like yesterday's garbage. She thought she could walk all over me without consequences. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. The drive home was a blur. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tight I thought I might snap it in half. Lisa's words replayed in my head, each one like a fresh knife to the gut. You need to leave. We're done here. You're being dramatic. It's honestly pathetic. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she show an ounce of guilt. No, she had laughed in my face. She had rolled her eyes like I was some annoying ex she could brush off. She thought she could play me for a fool. She thought I'd just take it. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my anger had sharpened into something colder. Something calculated. Lisa wanted to throw me away? Fine. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I walked into the house. Our house. The one I worked my ass off to afford. The one she was so comfortable trashing behind my back. I looked around at the life we had built, the furniture we picked together, the framed photos of us on the walls. A home built on lies. I went straight to the office, sat down, and pulled up my laptop. My hands still shook as I typed, but my mind was razor sharp. If Lisa wanted war, she was about to get one. I had the motel photos. I had her texts. But I needed more. Lisa wasn't just careless, she was arrogant. She thought she was untouchable. I was willing to bet this wasn't her first time. I started digging. Her social media. Her email. Our shared bank account. It didn't take long. There they were. Receipts. Dinner dates at fancy restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel reservations under fake names. Expensive gifts. I even found a hidden Venmo account where she had sent money to Tyler. She was paying for this guy? I clenched my jaw, but I kept going. The more I found, the more my rage turned into satisfaction. She thought she was so smart. Thought she had me fooled. She had no idea what was coming. Lisa was too comfortable. Too smug. That meant she wasn't expecting me to fight back. I opened a new tab and started researching divorce lawyers. The best ones. The ones who specialized in cases like mine. I didn't just want to leave her. I wanted to burn her world to the ground. I drafted an email. Attached the evidence. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed the final line. I want everything. The house. The assets. And I want to make sure she regrets every second of what she's done. I hit send. I wasn't done yet. Lisa wanted an open marriage. Fine. I'd show her what that really meant. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Jessica. Jessica was one of Lisa's old friends, and she hated her now. They had a falling out years ago over some petty drama, but one thing I knew for sure, Jessica loved revenge. I shot her a message. Me. Hey, long time no talk. Can I call you? Not even a minute later, my phone buzzed. Ethan? Wow. I did not expect to hear from you. Hey, Jess. Listen, I've got a story for you, and I think you're gonna love it. I told her everything. The affair. The lies. The motel. By the time I was done, she was fuming. Oh my God. That piece of garbage. I always knew she was a snake. I smirked. Want to help me ruin her life? Jessica laughed. Ethan, I thought you'd never ask. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours. Lisa thought she had won. Thought she could cheat, humiliate me, and walk away without consequences. She was about to learn the hard way. No one betrays me and gets away with it. The night after I caught Lisa in that motel, I barely slept. My mind was spinning, replaying every smug word, every dismissive look. The woman I had built a life with had no remorse. No guilt. If anything, She was annoyed that I had interrupted her fun, but she had no idea what was coming. By morning, my plan was fully formed. I wasn't going to yell, scream, or beg. I wasn't going to let her think, even for a second, that I was some pathetic husband she could walk all over. No, I was going to outplay her. I started with our finances. Over breakfast, I casually logged into our shared accounts and transferred half of everything into my own. Lisa wasn't exactly responsible with money. She was reckless, always assuming I'd cover for her. She rarely checked our accounts, and even if she did, I knew exactly how to make it look like nothing had changed. Next, I made a call to the best divorce lawyer in town. I wasn't taking any chances. I sent over the photos from the motel, the texts, the receipts, a mountain of evidence proving her infidelity. I didn't care about winning the divorce. I cared about destroying her in it. By noon, my lawyer had already drafted the papers. Adultery, financial misconduct, all laid out in brutal legal terms that ensured she would walk away with nothing. Lisa strolled into the house later that day, looking completely unbothered. She tossed her purse onto the counter and scrolled through her phone, not even acknowledging me. "Rough day?" I asked, my tone carefully neutral. She glanced up, arching an eyebrow. "Not really." "What?" I shrugged. "Just wondering how it feels knowing your boyfriend is unemployed." That got her attention. She narrowed her eyes. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "Tyler. He got fired today. Something about an anonymous email sent to his boss, full of screenshots of him sleeping with a married woman. Seems his gym didn't like the bad publicity." Lisa's face paled for just a second before she recovered, rolling her eyes. "Wow, you're pathetic." I smirked. "Am I? Because I'm not the one who has to explain to her boy toy why he's suddenly broke." She scoffed, shaking her head like I was some kind of joke. "You're acting like a child, Ethan. This is exactly why I needed something different. You're so predictable." I laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "Predictable? Lisa, if I was predictable, I'd be crying in a corner right now, begging you to stay. But that's not what's happening, is it?" She opened her mouth to argue, but before she could, I slid the divorce papers across the counter. Her smirk vanished. For the first time, she actually looked shaken. Her hand hovered over the papers, as if touching them would make this real. "What the hell is this?" she muttered. "You tell me," I said, watching her expression. "You wanted an open marriage. Congratulations. Now you get to experience it alone." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're overreacting." I exhaled, shaking my head. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't some stupid argument, Lisa. This is our marriage. The one you threw away like it meant nothing." She scoffed, shoving the papers back toward me. "I'm not signing this." I expected that. Of course, she wouldn't. She thought she still had control, that she could drag this out, twist it in her favor. I smiled, slow, deliberate. "Oh, you will. Because I've already sent these to my lawyer. And in case you're thinking of fighting it, I hope you enjoy being exposed for cheating in front of a judge." Lisa's face twisted in anger. "You're being a..." She caught herself before saying something she'd regret, gripping the counter until her knuckles turned white. I didn't give her a chance to regain control of the conversation. I stood up, grabbed my car keys, and headed toward the door. Before I walked out, I glanced back at her one last time. "You were right about one thing," I said. "I was predictable, but not anymore." And then I left, leaving her standing there, speechless. This was just the beginning. Lisa always thought she was untouchable. She carried herself like the world owed her something, like no matter what she did, she'd always land on her feet. That's what made this so satisfying, watching her world start to crumble. After I dropped the divorce papers on her, she didn't take it seriously at first. She still walked around the house like she owned the place, rolling her eyes whenever I was near. She barely even acknowledged the situation, as if ignoring it would make it go away. But reality hits harder than arrogance. The first sign that things were slipping from her control came when she checked our bank account. I was sitting in the living room when I heard her angry footsteps storming toward me. "What the hell did you do?" she snapped, waving her phone in my face. I didn't even look up from my laptop. "Be more specific, Lisa. I've done a lot lately." She practically threw her phone onto the coffee table, the banking app still open. The balance was half of what she expected. "You stole my money," she hissed. I finally looked up, letting out a short laugh. "Our money. And I took what was mine before you could blow it on some weekend getaway with your unemployed gym rat." Her jaw tightened, but she forced a smug smile. Doesn't matter. The house is still in my name. I tilted my head. Is it? I let that hang in the air for a moment before I pulled out my phone, scrolled to an email, and slid it across the table. Lisa's eyes darted over the screen, her confident expression shifting to one of confusion. What is this? A property transfer, I said casually. Turns out, when we refinanced last year, you never bothered to read the fine print. Your name was removed as primary owner. She blinked, her lips parting slightly as realization hit. You're lying. Call the bank. I could see the moment she knew I wasn't bluffing. That thin layer of arrogance cracked, just a little. I leaned forward, resting my arms on my knees. Lisa, I've spent years being the nice guy. The stable one. The one you could rely on while you played around with whatever fantasy life you wanted. But you made a mistake. She swallowed hard. And what's that? You underestimated me. Lisa's confidence was slipping, but she wasn't the type to give up without a fight. She straightened, crossing her arms like a spoiled child. You really think you're winning here? You're acting like some kind of mastermind, but all you're doing is proving how bitter you are. This is your loss, Ethan. You're throwing away everything over one little mistake. I stood up, towering over her, and let out a slow breath. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is accidentally saying the wrong name. Cheating? Lying? Laughing in my face about it. That's not a mistake, Lisa. That's who you are. Her nostrils flared, but I could see the flash of something else behind her eyes. Panic. She wasn't in control anymore, and she hated it. I walked past her, heading toward the front door. She called after me, her voice sharp. Where are you going? I didn't bother looking back. To celebrate. I spent the next 2 days making sure Lisa had nothing left to hold on to. First, I made sure our social circles knew exactly why we were splitting. Lisa thrived on attention. She loved being the center of admiration. So, I told the truth. Not in some dramatic announcement, but in quiet conversations that spread fast. The whispers started. The stolen glances. The pitying looks she despised. Her friends, our friends, started pulling away. Even the ones who usually took her side weren't willing to defend her. Then, I made sure Tyler felt the heat, too. I had more dirt on him than I even realized at first. Sketchy side deals at the gym, an entire second phone he used to message multiple women, and some not-so-legal supplements he sold under the table. One anonymous tip to the right places, and suddenly, he was being investigated. Lisa tried reaching out to him, but guess what? He wasn't answering. I caught her standing in the kitchen, staring at her phone like she was willing it to ring. Her nails tapped against the counter, her face tight with frustration. Something wrong? I asked, grabbing a drink from the fridge. She shot me a glare. None of your business. I smirked. Tyler finally realized you're not worth the trouble? She turned on me, her face twisting with anger. You're so goddamn smug, Ethan. You think you're winning? You think any of this makes you better than me? I took a sip of my drink, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her squirm. Then, I met her gaze, steady and calm. I don't need to be better than you, Lisa. I just needed you to lose. She threw her phone at the wall. I smiled. Checkmate. The night before I was set to officially move out, Lisa finally cracked. I was packing up the last of my things when I heard her outside my door. She hesitated before knocking, as if she didn't want to acknowledge that she was the one approaching me. I didn't invite her in. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. So that's it, huh? You're really leaving. I zipped up my bag, glancing at her. That's what happens after a divorce, Lisa. She bit her lip, looking away for a moment. I didn't think it would end like this. I let out a breath. Neither did I, but you made sure it did. Her jaw tightened. You weren't enough, Ethan. I smiled, shaking my head. No, Lisa, you weren't. She didn't have a comeback for that. I walked past her without another word, stepping into the night, leaving her standing there in the ruins of what she thought was her victory. And damn, did it feel good. Leaving that house should have felt bittersweet. After all, I had spent years building a life there, pouring my time, money, and effort into making it a home. But as I walked out that door for the last time, all I felt was relief. Lisa was still standing in the doorway, watching me with an unreadable expression. Maybe she expected me to turn back, to say something sentimental. Maybe she thought this was some kind of power play, and I would break at the last second. But I didn't. I threw my bag into the back seat, slid into my car, and drove off without a second glance. The silence after everything unraveled was deafening. For months, My life had been consumed by anger, betrayal, and planning my revenge. But now that it was over, there was this strange emptiness left behind. I wasn't sad, far from it, but I had been living in fight mode for so long that slowing down felt unnatural. I stayed with my friend, Mark, for the first few weeks. He had been one of the first to cut Lisa off when the truth about the affair came out. "Man, I still can't believe she thought she'd get away with it," he said one night over beers. "Like, did she think you were just going to sit there and take it?" I smirked. "She didn't think at all. That was her mistake." Mark shook his head. "You're handling this way better than I would. I'd be in jail by now." I laughed, taking another sip. "Oh, trust me. There were moments. Despite everything, I wasn't bitter. I had won. Lisa had been completely exposed. She had lost her reputation, her financial security, and the comfortable life she had taken for granted. And Tyler? He was spiraling. I heard through the grapevine that after losing his job, his savings dried up fast. He had no real skills outside of looking good in a gym, and his side hustles weren't cutting it anymore. The last I heard, he was couch surfing, desperately trying to find a way to recover. Lisa wasn't answering his calls. I'd be lying if I said that didn't bring me some satisfaction. It took about a month before Lisa finally reached out. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a text. Her name. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether to open it. Curiosity won. "Lisa, can we talk?" I almost laughed. After everything, now she wanted to talk? I ignored her. An hour later, another text. "Lisa, please, Ethan, just hear me out." I tossed my phone onto my desk. She was predictable. I had expected this. She thought she could manipulate her way back, spin some sob story about how she had made a mistake and wanted to fix things. Too bad for her. I was done listening. By the end of the day, she called. I let it ring. Then she called again. And again. Finally, I picked up, just to shut her down. "What do you want, Lisa?" She hesitated. I could tell she was trying to control her tone, to sound calm and composed. But there was a desperation underneath it. I don't like how we left things." I snorted. "You mean how you got caught cheating and lost everything?" She sighed heavily. "Ethan, can you stop being so childish for 1 second? We were together for years. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. "It did. Before you destroyed it." Silence. Then, she tried a different approach. "I made a mistake." "There it is," I muttered. "What?" The classic, "I made a mistake" speech. "Took you longer than I expected." She exhaled sharply. "I mean it, Ethan. I was stupid. I thought I needed something different. But I was wrong. I miss you." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you miss me? Or do you miss the life I gave you?" Her silence told me everything. I chuckled, shaking my head. "Yeah, that's what I thought. Lisa, I'm not some backup plan for when your affair doesn't work out. You made your choice. Now live with it. Ethan, please." I hung up. She called again. I blocked her number. That chapter of my life was closed. I won't pretend it was easy, rebuilding after everything. There were nights when the anger crept back in, when I thought about all the wasted years. But with every step forward, it got easier. I got my own place, upgraded my car, started hitting the gym, not just to work out, but to remind myself that I was building my own life again. And the best part? Lisa had to watch. She couldn't avoid seeing me moving on. Mutual friends still talked. They knew I was thriving. And that, more than anything, must have killed her. One night, I got a message from an unknown number. "Unknown, I saw you the other day. You look good. I'm happy for you." I didn't have to guess who it was. I deleted the message and went back to enjoying my night. Lisa was the past. And I was finally free. Lisa's messages stopped after I ignored her last attempt to reach out. It didn't surprise me. She was the type to give up when she realized she had no leverage left. Once she saw that I wasn't going to be her safety net, she must have decided to cut her losses. But that didn't mean she disappeared entirely. I started hearing things from mutual acquaintances. The same people who once sang Lisa's praises were now shaking their heads in disgust. Her name came up at random times, always in hushed tones, always with a mix of pity and disbelief. "She's been staying with her sister. Looks miserable. She tried to flirt with one of the guys at the gym. Got rejected hard. She showed up at a party last weekend and drank herself stupid. No one even wanted to take her home." Lisa was unraveling, and the world was watching. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I had my own apartment now, nothing fancy, but mine. No lingering memories of betrayal, no ghosts of the past. I had furnished it exactly how I wanted, filled it with things that made me happy. I wasn't just moving on, I was building something better. It had been 3 months since I walked out of that house for good. 3 months of silence from Lisa, no more desperate calls, no more manipulative texts. I was sure she had finally accepted her loss. But Lisa was never one to go down quietly. It was a Saturday afternoon when she showed up unannounced. I had just gotten back from the gym, my mind clear, my body relaxed. Stepping into my apartment, I tossed my keys on the counter, ready to enjoy a quiet weekend. Then there was a knock at the door. A strange feeling crept into my chest. Something instinctual, like the calm before a storm. I already knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. Lisa. She stood there, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on top of her head as if she had casually stopped by for coffee. But I saw past the facade, the nervous tapping of her fingers, the slight downturn of her mouth. I opened the door, leaning against the frame. "What do you want?" My voice was calm, detached. She hesitated, then let out a breathy laugh, like this was some kind of joke between us. "Are you really going to make me stand out here?" I didn't move. A flicker of frustration crossed her face. "Ethan, come on." I studied her, unimpressed. She looked different, not as put together as before. The expensive clothes didn't have the same shine. Her usual air of confidence seemed forced. "You lost the right to just show up at my door," I said. She sighed, shifting her weight. "I just wanted to talk." "About what?" "How you threw everything away. How you tried to play me, and it backfired." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't come here to fight." I smirked. "No? Then why are you here?" For the first time, she faltered. Her eyes darted past me, scanning the inside of my apartment. Was she expecting to find another woman here? Was she hoping to see something that would give her an edge? Too bad for her. There was nothing. Finally, she spoke. "I need help." I almost laughed. Of course she did. Lisa never reached out unless she needed something. She had burned through her options. Her affair had ended in disaster. Her reputation was ruined, and her finances were crumbling. Now, she was standing here, hoping that I would be her lifeline. "You're out of luck," I said, pushing the door closed. Her hand shot out, stopping it. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "I don't have anyone else." I stared at her, expression unreadable. This was it, the final act of her downfall. And the truth was, I felt nothing. There was no satisfaction in seeing her like this. No pleasure in her suffering. Only disgust at the woman who had once been my wife. "You made your bed," I said, pushing her hand away. "Now lie in it." Then I shut the door in her face. I waited, listening for any signs of a fight. But there was nothing, no pounding fists, no angry screams. Just a heavy silence. Then, the sound of retreating footsteps. And just like that, Lisa was gone. That was the last time I saw her. There were no more unexpected visits, no more desperate texts. Lisa faded into the background. Another cautionary tale of what happens when you betray the wrong person. Tyler had already abandoned her. The last I heard, he had packed up and left town, running from the mess he had helped create. Lisa? She had nothing left. And me? I was finally, truly free. Betrayal is a funny thing. It wrecks you at first, makes you question everything. But when you survive it, when you pull yourself out of the wreckage and come out stronger, it becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. Lisa thought she was breaking me. She thought she was trading up. Instead, she lost everything, and I found myself. There was no need for revenge. No need for hatred. Because the best revenge is living better. And that's exactly what I was doing. Lisa never showed up again after that day. No more desperate calls. No more texts trying to reel me back in. It was like she had finally realized what I had known all along. There was no way back. She had burned the bridge, stomped the ashes into the ground, and then had the audacity to act surprised when there was no way to cross it again. I didn't think about her much after that. Not in the way I used to. The anger, the betrayal, the endless loop of replaying every sign I had ignored, it all started to fade. Not because I forgave her, not because I wanted to make peace with it, but because I had moved on. For the first time in years, I wasn't living in reaction to someone else's actions. I wasn't strategizing around a woman who had no respect for me. I wasn't wasting time trying to figure out how I had ended up in that situation. I was just living. My new place had become a sanctuary. Small, modern, clean, everything Lisa had hated. She always wanted something bigger, flashier, something she could show off. But this was exactly what I needed. A space that was mine. I filled it with things that made me happy. New furniture, new clothes, even small things like kitchenware that wasn't picked out to match Lisa's aesthetic. Every inch of it reminded me that I had built this without her, that I was no longer tied to the mess she had left behind. I heard from mutual acquaintances that Lisa was struggling. She had tried to get back into the dating scene, but her reputation followed her everywhere. People knew what she had done, and no one wanted to be the next fool in line. Tyler had vanished completely, and whatever connection they had was long dead. She was alone, drowning in the consequences of her own choices. Part of me expected to feel satisfaction, to revel in the poetic justice of it all. But in reality, I didn't care. Lisa had become nothing more than a fading memory, a cautionary tale of what happens when you take people for granted. Work was better than ever. Without the stress of a toxic marriage weighing me down, I had started putting more effort into my career. Promotions that had once felt just out of reach were suddenly well within my grasp. It was amazing how much clarity came from cutting out dead weight. My social life had expanded, too. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and surrounded myself with people who actually respected me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking on eggshells, second-guessing myself, or being manipulated into feeling like I wasn't enough. One night, I was out with a few friends at a bar downtown. The place was packed, music loud but not overwhelming, the kind of atmosphere where you could actually enjoy yourself. I was mid-conversation when I felt a shift in the room, like someone was watching me. And then I saw her. Lisa. She was across the bar, sitting alone, a half-empty drink in front of her. She looked different, not in an obvious way. She still had the same carefully styled hair, the same expensive clothes, but there was something off, something missing. That spark she always carried, the confidence she once weaponized so easily, was gone. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I saw something there that I hadn't seen before. Regret. It wasn't the manipulative kind, not the calculated, I want something from you kind. This was real. She looked away quickly, but it didn't matter. I had seen it. And for the first time since everything had happened, I realized that I didn't hate her. I didn't feel anger or bitterness or the need to prove anything. I just felt nothing. I turned back to my friends, laughing at something someone had said, and just like that, she faded into the background. She was just another person in a crowded bar, another stranger in my life. That was the moment I knew I had won. Not because I had destroyed her, not because she was suffering, but because she no longer had any power over me. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. And mine had led me here, to a better life, a better mindset, a future that was entirely my own. As I left the bar that night, stepping into the cool air, I took a deep breath and smiled. I had survived the worst of it. No, I had done more than survive. I had thrived. And for the first time in a long time, I was truly, completely free.